Greetings and salutations. This is part three of Anxious. Part three of Anxious. And no, there is no introduction because this is supposed to be a very short segment. It's in continuation of part one and part two of Anxious. So, without further ado, let's get into part three. Now, this is the Signalman. I still your host, Daniel Signalman. And today we're addressing grief. Now, some of you have seen several videos that I've posted before, and you don't really understand what the videos were about. My intention was to at least allow you to hear the professionals talk from their point of view, the things that they experience in their life, and what other people that they serve experience, especially in the area of grief. So, grief is the big topic. And then there are a bunch of other things that can lead up to grief or can trigger a memory or trigger something that causes grief. Anxiety lies murking in between, and many times, it shows itself due to grief or not due to grief. Anxiety is a little different. However, without further ado, here's our text for the day. Here is our text for the day. We're going to Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30. Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. And it reads, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Well, we want to talk a little bit about grief. Some things that we know about grief is that grief has no time limit. It has maybe a starting point, but it does not necessarily have a finishing point. In the world of mental health, grief can last someone a lifetime. It can be a constant struggle. A death of a loved one can bring on cutting vibes, sometimes fresh memories of a loss, especially if you have experienced death, loss of a father, and then someone else experienced a loss of a parent or a father. You can relate, like I can. I can relate when somebody says, "My grandmother passed away." Although it happened almost 45 years ago, I understand. Now, for me, unlike others, the loss of that grandmother is a grief I deal with. It's not as severe as maybe the first couple years. But when I went to bury my father, I literally buried him next to my grandmother. Not necessarily side by side, but in the same row. You know, there's no other grave in between them. They're in the same row. I could stand on one side, put my foot on her tomb, and put my next foot on his tomb and touch. Okay, so nothing in between. Anyway, that experience, freshened the grief again, but it was still not as severe. For me, I have a different understanding. And I hope at the end of this segment, you will have a different understanding also. All right. Secondly, one thing the ladies brought out was that as the holidays approach, families struggle with if there's a loss. Okay. So grief doesn't have to be a loss of life. It can be a loss of jobs, right? Or the inability to keep a roof over your head. So there is, loss of a house. loss of something where it is crucial to the family to have. And some people don't see it that way. But during the holidays, these things can arise up in the spirit, or can rise up in the spirit, and one can become grief stricken due to the loss of family life. Loss can cause grief. That's the bottom line. Sometimes the things that are mentioned to some may seem meaningless, but loss to that particular person can create grief, especially if they feel as though it was important to their existence. Okay, a child loses his favorite teddy bear, their experience loss, a form of grief. Okay, however, those of us who follow Jesus Christ, those of us who believe in Jesus Christ, he has made an offer to us, not just to us, but to the non-believer, to those that he died for that don't know about him outside of him. Those of you, I'm speaking to you today. I'm also speaking to the believer. So let's analyze this real quick. It says, Jesus said, "Come unto me, all ye that labor." In the sentence, you recognize that it's an invitation to come to him for what? To come to me. But yes, for what? What is the purpose? It says, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. Two words. The criteria for coming is if you labor and are heavy laden. That's the criteria for coming. I can tell you that all of humanity currently deals with some form of labor. We call it mental health, and mental health is a form of labor. Mental stress, anxiety, grief, bipolar, it doesn't matter where you fall into the category or the broad scope of mental health. The invitation is for humans, all of humanity, to come to Jesus Christ. If you are under pressure mentally, you're working excessively mentally, because you don't have to be a farmer. You don't have to be somebody who's a soldier, literally in the field, but you can be someone that has to do, you're gathering intel, you're putting in data, you're one that is consistently trying to troubleshoot or update a particular system, and you have to do it in a timely fashion. Those that work in the ER, you get the point. Not that you're not physically moving around, but much of your day is spent diagnosing something, thinking about something. And in some cases, your job depends on your prolific or proficient, efficient way of handling your duties, which can lead people to drinking, drugs. And when I say drinking, I'm talking about becoming alcoholics. That's what I'm talking about. This is a call to come to him if you labor and are heavy laden. Heavy laden. You have more than you can bear. I know one family that has lost a brother, well, multiple brothers, and a sister, and another family member, all within 90 days, or maybe all within 2 years if you count the other brother. So in terms of grief and loss, they have lost back to back, to the point that the funeral director says he has become very intimate with the family. And everybody was praying and asking God's mercy, to ease up. Not that we don't know death is coming, but when you are looking at it from just one aspect, and you're seeing that this family is dealing with multiple loss of life, back to back to back. I went to another funeral unfortunately, and there was a young person that said, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired of doing this all the time. And because I'm attending many of those funerals, I understand where they're coming from. Their feet, it seems as there's no letting up. Nonetheless, Jesus is talking to individuals like yourself. And it doesn't have to be death. You can have someone that, your family lives a certain kind of lifestyle, and unfortunately, multiple siblings are being incarcerated because of the lifestyle they're living. Whether they're in prison, in jail, regardless of the situation, you, the mom, the auntie, the uncles on the outside, God is calling you. Jesus is calling you to come to him. If you have the weight of the world on you, you don't know where food is coming from, you don't know how you're going to keep your bills on, your lights on, you don't know how you're going to pay for your bills. He's saying, come to me. Now, this is the invite. The criteria is simple. If you labor mentally or physically, and you're suffering, and it's hardship, this is the criteria. If you have a lot put on by you, by your family, by society, by your boss, by your teachers, if you are just looking for some ease up, some relief, somebody hold on to this for me, because I can't hold on to it no longer. Jesus invites you to come to him. All right. So it continues. It says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So not only is he inviting the entire world to come unto him, not only is he inviting you, those that follow me, or believers that follow me, he's inviting your neighbors, he's inviting your community to come unto him, and he will give them rest. He says he's the answer. Come unto me. If you fall in this criteria, and you rest. Now, rest is when my wife is coming through the door with groceries in her hand, heavy bags in her hand, and she's huffing and she's puffing. And I said, let me grab that bag for you. Which one? The heavy one. I have released her from her burden, and she can now walk a little better. She can breathe a little better. This release from the burden does not mean that you won't have problems in life. But in the relationship, Jesus assures you he will make it light. He said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So you're not escaping a burden, but it'll be lighter than what you're currently taking, what you're currently carrying, what you're currently toting, what you're currently attempting to move by yourself. His burden is light. The yoke is what is placed on top of a donkey, mule, oxen, for them to perform by pulling a wagon, whatever hitch that they're attached to, whether it's a plow. That yoke, he said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. From a human point of view, none of that makes sense. But from Jesus's point of view, it does. And it's an invitation. He's not going to hold you by a gunpoint. He's saying, come taste and see that the Lord is good. Come find out what I can do for your soul. The result of accepting the offer, right? We talked about it, was rest. That's the result. I can attest, and many of you can attest, in knowing who your blessings come from, it makes it easy to deal with poor choices. In knowing who your Redeemer is, it makes it easier to deal with loss. When I make mistakes, I know that my Redeemer says, come unto me and I will give you rest. When I have losses in life that I cannot undo, there's nothing in my power to correct. He provides me constantly a peace in knowing that everything that I am, all that I am seeking to achieve, lies in him. It's a different walk. It's a walk where I don't have to curse you out to get my point across. That doesn't mean I didn't forget how to curse. It just means that he gives me that will that doesn't readily exist to hold my tongue and not say what I really want to say. And he gives me that skin, that mental fortitude, that when I hear those things that get under my skin, I am not moved to respond because they don't affect me like they used to.